The gentle hum of advanced machinery filled the observation deck of the Seeker as it drifted silently in Earth's orbit. Lead Observer Gray stood motionless before the massive viewing screen, their four eyes fixed on the events unfolding below. For 10 years, they had watched this blue planet, recording its inhabitants' behaviors and dismissing them as just another primitive species. But today was different. "Lead Observer, you need to see this," called out Green, one of the younger crew members. Their voice trembled with excitement as they enhanced the image of a burning building in what humans called a city. Gray moved closer to the screen, their tall, slender form casting a shadow over the control panel. The flames roared through the structure's upper floors, trapping several humans inside. According to all logical analysis, the correct response would be for the other humans to move away from danger. That's what any sensible species would do. But these humans did something else entirely. They ran toward the fire. Gray watched in growing confusion as humans wearing protective gear rushed into the burning building. "Replay the atmospheric analysis," they ordered, certain there must be valuable resources inside worth such a risk. "Nothing special, Lead Observer," Green reported, scrolling through data streams. "Just standard living units. The only things inside are—" They paused, double-checking the readings. Other humans, strangers to the ones going in. Gray's outer membrane shifted colors, displaying their surprise. In all their centuries of observation across the galaxy, they had never seen a species willingly risk death for unknown members of their own kind. It went against every survival instinct in the known universe. "Pull up the historical records," Gray commanded. "Show me similar incidents." The screens filled with images. Humans diving into rough waters to save drowning strangers, running into unstable structures after earthquakes, forming chains of their bodies to rescue others from natural disasters. Each incident contradicted the basic principles of survival that governed intelligent life. "Look at this one," Green said, highlighting a new feed. A small human was stuck in what they called a well. The logical solution would be to accept the loss and produce another offspring. Instead, hundreds of humans worked for days, digging, planning, and trying different methods to save a single life that wasn't even related to them. "They're using significant resources," noted Gray, their voice carrying a hint of fascination. "The energy expenditure for saving one small human exceeds the potential return by 147%. The observation team fell silent as they watched more footage. Humans creating chains of their vehicles to pull others from snowbanks. Humans sharing their food with strangers during what they called hard times. Humans risking their lives to save even other species, their pets, and wildlife. This requires deeper study," Gray decided, their color shifting to the deep blue of intense thought. "We've been categorizing them wrong all along. These aren't the actions of a primitive species." They turned to face their team, all 6 fingers on each hand spread wide in the gesture of significant discovery. "We're seeing something new here, something we don't understand." Green looked up from their station, their young membrane rippling with excitement. "Should I notify the council?" Gray kept their eyes on the screen, where another rescue was in progress. "Not yet. We need more data. These humans, they're doing something that defies our understanding of evolutionary advantage. They're choosing to help others even when it offers no benefit to themselves or their genetic line. It's inefficient," Green noted, but their tone carried uncertainty. "Is it?" Gray asked softly. "Look at their cities. Their civilizations. They'd survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. While other species we've studied fought each other for resources, these humans," they gestured to the screen, where people were now sharing blankets and food with those who'd lost their homes to the fire. "These humans work together. They save each other. And somehow, they're thriving." The observation deck fell silent again as the team watched the aftermath of the fire. The humans below were hugging each other, crying, sharing what they called coffee. Their behavior made no logical sense. And yet, "Expand all observation parameters," Gray ordered finally. I want everything. Brain activity during these events, hormone levels, social patterns, cultural development. If we're going to understand how this species works, we need to look deeper. They turned to their crew, their membrane now glowing with the orange of determination. We've been seeing their emotional responses as weakness, but what if we're wrong? What if this is their strength? The Seeker's engines hummed quietly as it adjusted its orbit, its sensors focusing with renewed purpose on the planet below. On its surface, unaware of the scrutiny from above, humans continued their daily lives, doing what came naturally to them, helping each other, protecting each other, and breaking every rule the aliens thought they knew about survival in the universe. Blue knew they had made a terrible mistake the moment their stealth probe's controls stopped responding. The small craft shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere at the wrong angle, its cloaking system flickering dangerously. From the Seeker's observation deck, Lead Observer Gray watched in horror as the probe's trajectory carried it toward a snow-covered mountain range. "Calculate the impact zone," Gray ordered, their membrane flashing warning colors. The team worked quickly, their fingers dancing over control panels as they tracked the falling probe's path. "Remote mountains in what humans call the Rockies," Green reported. "At least it's not a populated area." The probe hit the mountainside in a flash of light that their sensors quickly masked from human detection systems. Blue's membrane turned pale with shame. It was their first solo mission, a simple observation run, and now they had violated the most basic rule of their work: never leave evidence. "The humans will find it," Gray said, their tone carrying no judgment but heavy with concern. "We need to send a recovery team before." Lead Observer, one of the sensor operators, interrupted. "We're detecting movement in nearby human settlements." The screens filled with images of humans mobilizing. They called it a search and rescue response, triggered by reports of strange lights in the sky. Gray watched, fascinated, as humans began preparing for a rescue mission in weather conditions that their data suggested were extremely dangerous. "They think it's one of their aircraft," Blue said quietly. "They're going to look for survivors." In this weather, Green checked the atmospheric readings. The temperature is well below their comfort range. Wind speeds make their helicopters unsafe. The terrain is hazardous. Surely they'll wait for better conditions. They didn't wait. The observation team watched as humans loaded into vehicles they called snowmobiles and rescue trucks. They brought medical supplies, warming equipment, and tools. More surprisingly, they brought extra food and water, not just for potential survivors, but for each other. "Look at their organization," Gray noted with growing interest. Multiple teams, different specialties, all coordinating. The humans had set up what they called a base camp at the foot of the mountain. They were using primitive but effective communication devices to coordinate their search patterns. The storm grew worse. The aliens expected the humans to turn back. Any logical species would. Instead, more humans arrived. They came from different rescue teams, different towns, even different sections of their government. They didn't fight over who would lead the mission or argue about territory. They simply joined forces and kept searching. "They're adapting to conditions," Blue observed, their shame temporarily forgotten as they watched the humans create chains of rope between themselves to brave the steep slopes. Every time they face an obstacle, they find a way around it. The humans didn't know they were searching for an empty alien probe. They believed one of their own aircraft had crashed, which made their dedication logical. But as Gray watched them work together, they noticed something else. "They're watching out for each other," Gray said. "Look, they're rotating their teams before exhaustion sets in. They're checking each other for signs of what they call hypothermia. They're sharing their supplies." The storm raged for 3 days. The humans didn't give up. They worked in shifts, maintaining their base camp, coordinating with other teams, and systematically searching the mountain piece by piece. They used devices to detect metal, heat sensors to find warm bodies, and even brought animals, dogs, to help them search. "They're getting closer to the probe," Blue warned on the 4th day. The shamed colors returned to their membrane. Gray made a decision. Activate the probe's dissolution protocol. The team watched as their advanced technology dissolved into unrecognizable elements, leaving no trace just hours before the human search team reached its location. The humans would find nothing after all their effort. They'll be disappointed, Green said. All that work for nothing. But something unexpected happened. The humans weren't angry. They gathered at their base camp, shared hot drinks and food, and checked on each other. They called it a good effort and said they were proud of their teamwork. They had failed to find what they were looking for, but they celebrated the fact that they had tried. Together, I think, Gray said slowly, we need to reconsider our definition of success. They turned to Blue, whose membrane still showed shame colors. Your mistake has shown us something valuable. These humans, their strength isn't in their technology or their physical capabilities. It's in how they work together, how they keep trying, even when logic says they should stop. The observation team watched as the humans packed up their equipment, made plans to meet again for something they called training, and promised to be ready for the next emergency. They hadn't found what they were looking for, but they had found something else, a stronger connection with each other. In the quiet of the Seeker's observation deck, Gray made a note in their official log. Humans display unprecedented levels of cooperative behavior and resource sharing, even in failure scenarios. Further study essential to understand how this apparent inefficiency contributes to their species' survival. The research team aboard the Seeker had expanded their observation range across Earth's surface, and what they found left them more confused than ever. Green was the first to notice something odd at a place humans called a wildlife sanctuary. Lead observer, Green called out, their membrane rippling with confusion. These humans are using medical supplies to treat an injured flying creature. It's not even their species. Gray moved to the observation screen. The humans below were carefully wrapping the wing of a large bird. They used their precious resources, medicine, food, and time, to help an animal that would never benefit them in any way. Pull up more examples, Gray ordered. The screens filled with similar scenes from across the planet. Humans helping whales back into deep water. Humans climbing trees to rescue small animals. Humans building special homes for creatures they called endangered species. Look at this, Blue said from their station, their earlier mistake now forgotten in the excitement of new discoveries. They're growing plants and trees in areas destroyed by their own progress. They're trying to fix damage they caused decades ago. The images showed humans planting forests, cleaning rivers, and bringing water to dry lands. They weren't doing it for immediate gain. Many of these projects would take years, even generations, to show results. There's more, Green added. They're preserving information about species that don't even exist anymore. They call them extinct. They keep detailed records, make pictures, and teach their young about creatures they'll never see. Gray's membrane shifted to the deep blue of intense thought. Show me their behavior during what they call natural disasters. The screens changed to show scenes from different parts of Earth. A large storm had flooded many human homes in one area. The team expected to see conflict over remaining resources. Instead, they watched as humans from dry areas loaded vehicles with supplies and drove toward the flood zone. These helpers are from a different territory, Blue noted, checking the data. According to our records, their groups have fought wars against each other in the past. Yet they help each other now, Gray said softly. Zoom in on that gathering place. The image focused on a building humans called a shelter. Inside, people who had lost their homes sat with people they had once called enemies. They shared food, blankets, and something humans called comfort. Their young ones are playing together, Green observed, watching small humans chase each other around the shelter. Their adults are sharing stories. They're laughing. Gray moved closer to the screen. Cross-referenced this behavior with our records of other species we've studied. The ship's computer hummed as it processed the request. The result was clear. No other known species showed this level of cooperation with former enemies. No other species spent resources helping animals that couldn't help them back. No other species tried to fix damage that wouldn't affect their own generation. There's something about their global information network too, Blue added. They share their knowledge freely. When one human group learns how to solve a problem, they don't keep it secret. They tell others. The screen showed humans teaching each other across vast distances. They used primitive devices to share information about growing food, cleaning water, and building shelters. They made what they called educational videos and shared them without asking anything in return. It goes against everything we know about survival, Green said. Sharing resources with enemies, helping other species, fixing damage they won't live to see repaired, teaching others how to succeed. How have they not destroyed themselves? Gray watched as more scenes played across the screens. Humans creating art about animals they'd never see. Humans crying over the death of creatures that weren't their own kind. Humans celebrating when their efforts brought a species back from near extinction. Maybe, Gray said, their membrane glowing with the orange of a new idea. We've been thinking about survival all wrong. These humans, they don't just try to keep themselves alive. They try to keep everything alive. Their world, their history, even their enemies. The observation team fell silent, watching as humans continued their strange, illogical, wonderful behaviors across the planet. They helped each other without reason. They saved creatures that would never thank them. They fixed things they hadn't broken. And somehow, together, they kept going forward. Update the research priorities, Gray ordered. We need to understand how their emotional connections create practical advantages. There's something here we've never seen before. A species that grows stronger by helping others grow stronger too. On the screens, a group of humans celebrated the release of a healed animal back into the wild. They smiled and shed tears, though they would likely never see the creature again. In their joy, the aliens saw something that would change their understanding of life itself. The Council of Observers took 3 Earth days to approve Gray's request for experimental intervention. They gathered in the Seeker's communication chamber, their membranes flickering with mixed colors of doubt and curiosity as Gray presented their proposal. We will introduce small challenges across different human communities, Gray explained. Nothing dangerous, just puzzles that require them to work together. We need to understand if their cooperative behavior is consistent or merely random. The experiment began in a small coastal town. The aliens used their technology to slightly alter the local fishing grounds, making the fish gather in unusual patterns that the humans' traditional methods couldn't predict. The team expected the fishing community to guard their new discoveries. Instead, something else happened. Look at their communication patterns, Blue said, monitoring the data streams. They're not just telling their own community. They're reaching out to other fishing towns. The screen showed humans sharing information through their primitive digital networks. They drew maps, made videos, and even invited fishers from other areas to come and learn. When someone found a new method that worked, they didn't keep it secret. They taught everyone else. The next test was in a farming region. The aliens introduced a harmless but puzzling change in soil composition. The humans noticed their crops growing differently and immediately began working on solutions. But they didn't work alone. They're connecting with people they call scientists in places they call universities, Green reported. They're sending soil samples across their world. They're asking for help from anyone who might know something useful. Gray watched as humans from different countries joined the effort. They shared research, suggested experiments, and offered advice. When one group found a solution, they didn't sell it. They published it freely for everyone to use. The observation team set up more tests. They adjusted wind patterns around a mountain pass. They slightly altered the migration routes of local animals. They created small but unusual weather patterns. Each time, they watched in amazement as humans not only solved the problems but improved upon the solutions. Look at this, Blue called out excitedly. The humans in the mountain region developed a new kind of weather monitoring system to track our wind changes, but instead of keeping it to themselves, they've made the design public. They call it open source. And here, Green added, the farming communities didn't just solve the soil problem. They're using what they learned to help other regions with different growing challenges. They're building on their knowledge. The most surprising results came from an urban test. The aliens created a subtle power fluctuation in one city's electrical grid. They expected chaos. Instead, they watched as the community organized itself into helping groups. People with power invited strangers into their homes. Restaurants gave away food that would spoil. Children did homework by candlelight in community centers. They're treating it like a celebration. Blue said, their membrane showing confusion colors. They're calling it a blackout party. They're playing games and telling stories instead of fighting over resources. Gray moved between the observation screens, their 4 eyes taking in all the data. In every test site, humans showed the same pattern. They didn't just solve problems. They helped others solve them too. They didn't just survive challenges. They turned them into opportunities to build stronger connections. There's something more here, Gray said, watching as humans in different test sites began connecting with each other, sharing their experiences and solutions. They're not just cooperating within their groups. They're building networks. Every challenge we give them makes these networks stronger. The council members, watching the results from their distant chamber, had to agree. The experiments had proven something unexpected. Humans didn't just help each other survive. They helped each other grow. One more test, Gray proposed. Let's see what happens if we create a small problem that affects several communities at once. The team carefully designed a minor challenge involving water flow between 3 different regions. They expected the communities to compete for resources. Instead, they watched in amazement as representatives from all 3 areas met together, shared information, and worked on a solution that would help everyone. They're not dividing the problem, Green observed. They're solving it as one group. No, Gray corrected, their membrane glowing with understanding. They're solving it as one species. The experiment had revealed something profound. Humans didn't just use cooperation as a survival tool. They used it as a way to become better. Every challenge made them more connected, more innovative, and more unified. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving together. The Seeker's alert system activated without warning. Red lights flashed across the observation deck as the ship's sensors detected a massive solar disturbance heading toward Earth. The alien crew gathered around their screens, their membranes pulsing with concern as they analyzed the data. It's a Class X solar flare, Green announced, their fingers moving rapidly over the control panel. Much larger than anything these humans have faced in their recorded history. Gray studied the projected impact calculations. The flare would hit Earth in exactly 7 days. While their ship was well protected, the humans' primitive technology would be severely affected. Power grids would fail. Communications would go dark. Navigation systems would become useless. Should we warn them? Blue asked, their membrane showing worry colors. After months of watching humans, many of the crew had grown oddly attached to these strange, helpful creatures. We can't interfere, Gray replied, though their own membrane flickered with concern. We can only observe how they handle this crisis. The human solar monitoring stations detected the flare the next day. The aliens watched, expecting panic and chaos. Instead, they saw something remarkable begin to unfold. Look at their information spread pattern, Green said with surprise. Within hours, scientists from different countries were sharing data. Space agencies that usually competed were now working together. The humans were coordinating on a global scale. The aliens observed as humans began preparing for the impact. Countries with advanced power systems shared their protection designs freely. Nations with better satellite technology offered their resources to help track the flare. Places with experience in handling blackouts sent experts to help other regions prepare. They're not hoarding resources, Blue noted, watching as wealthy nations offered help to poorer ones. They're pooling them. Gray zoomed in on various locations around the planet. In cities, people were helping each other prepare emergency kits. In rural areas, communities were setting up shared power backup systems. Farmers were working together to protect food production systems. Hospitals were sharing medical supplies. Their social media networks are full of people offering help. Green reported. Homes to strangers, food to neighbors, skills to anyone who needs them. The observation team watched as humans turned their sports stadiums into emergency shelters. Schools became community centers. Religious buildings opened their doors to everyone, regardless of beliefs. Private companies offered their resources for public use. Their governments are actually working together, Blue said in amazement. Nations that had been enemies for generations were now coordinating their efforts. Military ships were being used to move supplies. Air forces were helping to strengthen communication networks. As the flare got closer, the aliens saw something they hadn't expected. The humans were scared. Their monitoring systems showed elevated stress levels across the population, but they weren't letting fear drive them apart. Instead, it was bringing them together. They're sharing survival information in every language, Green noted. They're making simple pictures called infographics so everyone can understand, even if they can't read. Gray watched as humans used their creativity to solve problems. They created hand-powered chargers for medical equipment. They developed simple ways to protect electronic devices. They wrote songs to help children remember emergency procedures. Every solution was shared freely, improved upon by others, and spread across the world. 4 days until impact, Blue announced. The aliens had seen other civilizations face similar crises. Usually, by this point, society would start to break down. But the humans were getting stronger. They organized themselves into support networks. They set up systems to check on elderly neighbors. They created plans to help those with special needs. They even remembered their animals, creating shelters that would protect both pets and wildlife. 2 days, Green called out. The flare was now visible to human telescopes. The aliens watched as millions of people gathered in community centers, not in panic, but to help each other prepare for the dark days ahead. One day, Blue said quietly. The observation deck was silent as they watched humanity face this test together. They had seen humans help each other before, but never on this scale. Never with this level of unity. Gray's membrane glowed with a new understanding. These humans, who they had once thought primitive, were showing them something profound. In their greatest crisis, they weren't just surviving. They were showing the galaxy a new way to live. A way where helping others wasn't a weakness, but the greatest strength of all. The solar flare hit Earth with tremendous force. From the safety of the Seeker, Gray and their team watched as the planet's magnetic field lit up with beautiful, dangerous energy. Power grids flickered and died across entire continents. Communication systems went silent. The darkness that spread across the night side of the planet was deeper than they had ever seen. But in that darkness, Gray saw something that changed everything. Look at their heat signatures, Gray said, adjusting the sensors to penetrate the blackout. Instead of seeing people isolated in their homes, they saw clusters of warmth. Humans had gathered together in their community shelters, shared spaces, and emergency centers. Their stress hormone levels are lower when they're together, Blue reported, studying the biological data. Even in crisis, they're calming each other down, helping each other stay hopeful. Gray moved between observation stations, watching different scenes unfold across the planet. In one city, people were taking turns pedaling modified bicycles to generate power for medical equipment. In another, children were leading sing-alongs in emergency shelters, while adults distributed food and water. Play back the historical data, Gray ordered suddenly. Show me every major crisis these humans have faced in the last 100 years. The screens filled with images, wars, disasters, plagues, and catastrophes. But Gray wasn't looking at the disasters themselves. They were looking at the human responses. Patterns began to emerge. Their emotional connections, Gray said softly, their membrane glowing with the bright colors of revelation. We thought they were a weakness, a primitive trait they hadn't evolved past. But look, really look at what these connections do. The teen watched as Gray highlighted scene after scene. During a great sickness, humans had risked their lives to care for strangers. During wars, people had hidden and protected those who were supposed to be their enemies. During famines, communities had shared what little food they had. These bonds they form, Gray continued, their voice growing excited. They're not just about feelings. They're survival tools. Advanced ones that we never considered possible. Green looked confused. But emotions make them do illogical things. They risk many lives to save one. They share resources when they should save them. They help others instead of helping themselves. Yes, Gray's membrane pulsed with bright colors. And that's exactly why they survive. Don't you see? When one human helps another, they're not just saving that life. They're teaching others to do the same. They're building networks of trust and cooperation that last for generations. The screen showed more images, humans passing down stories of past disasters, teaching their children about helping others, celebrating heroes who had sacrificed for strangers. Each act of kindness wasn't just a single moment. It created ripples that spread through time. Their empathy isn't a weakness, Gray explained, their revelation growing stronger. It's a sophisticated survival mechanism. When they help each other, they're not just surviving the current crisis, they're preparing for the next one. Each act of cooperation makes their entire species stronger. Blue studied the data streaming across their screen. Their recovery rates from disasters are faster than any species we've studied. Even with inferior technology, they'd rebuild better than civilizations far more advanced than they are. Because they don't just rebuild structures, Gray said. They rebuild connections. Each crisis makes their bonds stronger, their communities larger, their cooperation better. The teen watched as humans across the planet dealt with the solar flare's aftermath. They had prepared well, working together in ways that defied the aliens' understanding of survival. But now Gray understood why. The humans don't just plan for their own survival, Gray explained. They plan for everyone's survival. And because they try to save everyone, they find solutions we never would have considered. Their emotional bonds don't just create kindness, they create innovation. As the Earth slowly recovered from the flare, the aliens saw their observation data in a new light. What they had thought were signs of primitive development, emotional attachments, altruistic behavior, hopeful thinking, were actually sophisticated adaptations. The humans weren't failing to evolve past their emotions. They were evolving to use those emotions in ways the aliens had never imagined possible. Send a priority message to the Council, Gray ordered, their membrane glowing with the deepest colors of discovery. We need to completely revise our understanding of advanced life. These humans haven't just shown us a different way to survive. They've shown us a better way to live. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council glowed with the combined light of 1,000 alien membranes. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for what would become one of the most important meetings in their history. Gray stood before them, their own membrane glowing with calm confidence as the last pieces of Earth data were loaded into the presentation system. We have been wrong, Gray began, their voice carrying across the silent chamber. Not just about humans, but about the very nature of advancement itself. The council members shifted, their membranes showing colors of skepticism and curiosity. For centuries, they had ranked species based on technological achievement, logical thinking, and elimination of emotional responses. Humans had always been classified as primitive, barely worth noting. Show us, the council leader commanded, their ancient membrane rippling with wisdom colors. Gray activated the first display, showing scenes from the solar flare crisis. We watched humans face a catastrophe that would have shattered many advanced civilizations. But instead of breaking apart, they grew stronger. The images played across the Great Hall's screens. Humans working together, sharing resources, protecting strangers. The council members watched as communities united, nations cooperated, and humanity faced the crisis as one species. But this is inefficient, one council member objected. Their methods waste resources. They risk many to save few. They share when they should preserve. Yes, Gray agreed, their membrane pulsing with excitement. And that is exactly why they are remarkable. While we evolved to survive through logic and self-preservation, humans evolved to survive through connection and cooperation. New images filled the screens. Gray showed the council how human children learned by playing together, how communities grew stronger by helping their weakest members, how knowledge spread faster when freely shared. Each example challenged the council's understanding of advancement. Look at their recovery rates. Gray continued, displaying charts and data. When disaster strikes, human communities don't just survive. They rebuild better than before. Their connections grow stronger. Their cooperation improves. Their solutions become more innovative. The council leader moved closer to the displays, their membrane showing deep-thought colors. Show us their technological progress. Gray changed the displays again, but not to show machines or computers. Instead, they showed humans teaching each other, sharing ideas across vast distances, improving on each other's work. Their greatest technology isn't in their devices. It's in their ability to connect, to share, to build on each other's knowledge. But their emotions make them unpredictable, another council member argued. They act against their own interests. No, Gray corrected gently. Their emotions make them stronger. Watch. The screens showed humans celebrating small victories together, comforting each other in hard times, sharing joy and sorrow. These emotional bonds don't just make them help each other now. They make them want to help each other in the future. Every act of kindness creates ripples that last for generations. The council chamber filled with discussion colors as members debated this new perspective. Gray waited patiently, then showed their final evidence. While we advanced by becoming more separate, more logical, more focused on individual survival, humans advanced by becoming more connected, more compassionate, more focused on group survival. Gray's membrane glowed with conviction, and their method has advantages we never considered possible. The screen showed how human communities could adapt to new challenges faster than purely logical societies, how their emotional connections led to creative solutions that logic alone would never have discovered, how their habit of helping others actually helped them survive better than pure self-interest would have. We need to rewrite our understanding of advancement, Gray concluded. Humans aren't primitive. They're pioneers. They've discovered a form of evolution we never thought possible. One based not on competition, but on cooperation. Not on isolation, but on connection. The council leader raised all four hands for silence, their membrane showing the deepest colors of revelation. You believe we should change our entire classification system. I believe we must, Gray replied. Humans have shown us that true advancement isn't just about surviving. It's about helping others survive too. Their emotional connections aren't weaknesses. They're sophisticated survival tools that we, in our pursuit of pure logic, forgot were possible. The council chamber erupted in discussion colors again, but this time they were brighter, more hopeful. The leader's membrane shifted to the rare color of fundamental change.